The most influential voice in your life. The most influential voice in our lives. I think when people hear those words, they think like automatically someone outside of ourselves.
Immediately.
Immediately, right?
Immediately. Most people do.
Most people do. But when I thought about this topic, I'm thinking about the voice inside of me,
The inner voice.
the inner voice. We can talk about this one for a while. But let's start with our personal experience of the inner talk. I have a pretty mean inner critic.
Yeah.
But then there's another part of me that's nicer. But how would you explain your view or even how you interpret that voice, the most influential voice in your life right now?
To be truth, it's the only voice that matters.
Mm.
It really is the only voice that matters. I remember back when I was a young boy in my teenage years, man, I used to be the motivator and didn't even know it.
Oh, that's
right?
cool.
Like I didn't know what a motivational speaker was. I didn't know what a coach was. But I just remember motivating my friends and families, like the struggles that we're facing now, it's not forever. What we're going through, we will overcome.
Wow.
You know, like better days are ahead. I had no clue what I was doing. You know, I tell people that all the little words that you say, you know, greater is better. Nothing's gonna stop you. You can do anything. Like I used to believe all of those things.
Really?
You know?
How old were you then?
I was young, man. Like preteens, 11, 12.
You didn't have a
13 years
young
old.
brain.
No, seriously. Like if you said something that was inspiring, I took hold to it and I kept it. You know, I remember someone told me at the age of 8, you learn something new every day. And I never forgot it.
Yeah.
And I was curious about learning something new every day. You know, so
Interesting.
when people had those little phrases that they would say about, you know, being inspiring, being your best, being great, I believed them all. And I still do.
Being inspiring and being great. There's some big, powerful words there. There was a moment years ago where how would I say this? I had a gatekeeper
Okay.
inside of me that started to realize, wait a minute, why am I allowing this voice come through?
Wow.
And I remember it really shifted how I view life, perspective. And I was asking myself the question, where did this voice come from?
How long ago would you say that was?
It would come and go, right? Like there were moments where I realized it was like an awakening.
At what age? Were you an adult?
Definitely early teens.
Okay.
And then when I guess I realized the environment I was in. I was hearing some of the voices in the environments that I was in when I was a teenager, and then when I was transitioning into the military, I started hearing other people realizing the voice within them. Why am I so judgmental of myself?
Through conversations, they were telling you that they're hearing that same voice, or you were observing the voice in them?
I would see them observe the voice within them, and then I would reflect on my own voice, that influential voice. Because I would realize, like, wait, why am I doing this? I think that's what it was. It was the trigger or the realization of why am I doing this? I would ask myself the question, why am I doing this? And then I'll backtrack it, kind of figure out, where did this influence come from? Why did I end up doing this thing? And it could have been like I was drinking with the guys and I was, you know, overdoing it. And I was like, why do I keep doing this? I'm hungover. I'm like, I stink. And I'm like, not even happy with myself. Why do I keep doing this?
How long did it take for you to spark a change? Because I had that same,
you did?
same epiphany.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was at work one day and I had to be there at 5 a.m. And I had, I had hang out
change it.
too late, drinking too much. And I was standing there like, why do I keep doing, like, this is horrible. Like, I want to go tell them that I'm sick so I can go home right now. And I was like, this is it. But it really took me going there. It took me feeling like I was defeated, like I was going to, you know, of course I wasn't going to die. But the feeling, it was so, so bad. And I was like, why do I keep doing this? I think I was about 22 at the time.
22.
And I was like, I'm too young for this and I'm too old for this. But this is horrible. I got to stop. And it sparked a change, man. Like, I think that's when my change really happened.
I think, alluding to what you're saying, it's very similar for me. I think because I didn't fit in with certain groups that I was around, like there'll be a season, right? I'll fit in, but then I'll feel out of place for some reason. And I think it's because how I was raised, and even I think just my background in general. I've always been an outcast. Like I would always feel that way. People wouldn't see me that way, but I would always feel that way. I felt that way with my family. I felt that way with in the military at times, because I was like the only Pacific Islander in the group sometimes. I always feel like the outcast. Now, that may sound like a burden, right?
Yeah.
Which, to a degree, it can be. But I would also see the blessing behind it, because I wouldn't always be following these groups all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
You were set apart.
I was set apart.
You were different. Yeah.
I was different. Yeah, well, I felt different, but I know some people can have that victim mentality of like, I'm always different. I'm different. Why am I always different? Just embracing that difference.
So, periodically things will come to me, quotes will come to me as I'm thinking or as I'm journaling.
Yeah.
And about a couple years ago, I wrote my burdens were my blessing. Right. And just like you explained, you felt like you didn't fit in. Mm-hmm. In my case, I was going from house to house, place to place.
Yeah.
That was a burden in itself, because I didn't have a place to lay my head consistently that I could call my home. But that in itself, I truly believe it was my blessing.
That's
because
actually
it allowed,
biblical too.
because it allowed me to, one, not conform.
Wow,
right?
yeah.
If you're anywhere long enough, you're going to conform to the environment. It's going to shape you, make you, or break you. We talked about this
Duration,
once,
yeah.
right? And two, it gave me flexibility. I was able to see different perspectives, about people, lifestyles, attitudes, environments, culture.
Yeah.
So I picked up a little bit. And the residual effect is what I learned over here, I could apply over there. What I didn't like about this place, I could change and not do it over here in this place.
That's a gift, man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So our burdens sometimes are our blessings, man.
Interesting.
With the right perspective.
That's key.
Because I could have took my situation, like, some people do, and use it as a crutch, as in how come I can't succeed, or why I didn't produce, or how come I can't be better because of what I went through.
I've had a conversation with some of our friends at church, and the question that arose was, what's the difference between leadership and manipulation? And
that is a great question.
Right. And his name was Garland. That's probably why it was such a great question. The fine line between leadership and manipulation. And we were talking about this question, if you will.
That's a good one. I need to. Who answered the question?
See, there were several people that answered the question, but never gave a good answer to it. Right. There was kind of like, oh yeah, because they're so close together. There's nothing far in between, if that makes sense. The line isn't drawn like clearly of the difference between leadership and manipulation. But I felt like I did some research and started internalizing. It's like I was just like trying to internalize. I'm trying to figure out like, okay, it's like a plant, right? Or when I think of a plant, right, those with like the vines that kind of grow.
Okay.
And it kind of twirls around and it kind of grows in whatever it's around, if that makes sense. So I had a picture of that where this vine is growing, but then you'll have these gardeners will have this stake to almost like manipulate this vine to grow a certain direction.
To direct.
And the thing about manipulation is you're directing them for your cause, but leadership is directing them to a cause that ultimately serves everybody.
Yeah.
Not just the one person, not just like, for someone's need, if you will. Okay. It was like, no, this is ultimately for the cause of serving humanity, if that makes sense. So this one person, let's say this vine that's growing in this direction is going higher so that it can ultimately grow this tree or whatever to produce fruit that ultimately serves whoever it is serving. The line that I'm talking about here, to make it very clear, is destination. Where? What direction is this going?
Where are we leading these people to? Person?
Is this like, is the stake going sideways and it's going off to a completely different direction that has no cause, no purpose? It really doesn't help anybody. But when you have a vine that's growing upwards, then it has that ability to literally go as high as it can go, and then it ultimately sprouts and give out its fruit that it needs to give out.
I like it. My take on leadership isn't necessarily, that and this is just my take, that leadership isn't about taking somebody somewhere. It's about taking what's on the inside of people and guiding it, nurturing it, developing it. And ideally, it will start with you as the individual, nurturing the fruit that you have in you to attract those people to what you have, to help motivate what's inside of them that attracted them to you, right? But when we talk about organizational leadership, and is that what you were talking about, organizational leadership?
Can be both.
As in leading people,
it could be
leading groups?
Leadership is found in corporate realm, businesses, family. Like you'll see every single aspect, sphere of influence, essentially. You're leading that sphere of influence anywhere you go, everywhere you go, anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah, there's this idea of casting your net, which means throwing your net out there, and what you grab in the net was meant for you, right? And when I think of casting your net, I think about the fruit that I have inside of me, the talents, the gifts, the things that I've been blessed with to achieve highly at. You know, when I cast my net, those who are attracted to me are those who have something in common with me and have a calling that's laced with what I have to give to the world.
I like where you're going with this.
And I think that's what leadership is. It's being brave enough to cast your net, to speak your purpose, to develop what God has put inside of you, bring it to fruition, and let those who are attracted to it, who need what you have, come to you, right? Versus leading with a stick.
And that's influence.
Yeah. Because leadership is influence.
Yeah. And I feel like this is why it's important to regulate and reflect on that inner voice that's very influential in your life, because that inner voice echoes to the people around you.
It has a frequency. If you don't like the station you listening to, you simply turn the station to a different frequency.
Yeah, say it, man.
You know, and that's what leadership is. Leadership is having a frequency within you that attract others to that frequency. And that frequency ain't for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I can't lead everybody. I'm not called to lead everybody. You're not called to lead everybody.
That goes back to people's interpretations too.
Exactly. Yeah. But your frequency will attract those that you've been called and gifted to lead.
Have you heard the definition between, and this is more in the sales realm, convincing and persuading? I feel like it's leading towards this.
I haven't.
Our friend Myron Golden, one day we'll meet him.
Myron.
He talks about the difference between convincing and persuading.
Okay.
The difference with convincing in the sales realm is you're trying to get them to do something that they ultimately didn't want to do in the first place.
But you want it.
Persuading is you're literally just guiding them. You're advising them in their direction towards the destination of what they truly want, what they wanted in the first place, what they desired. You just direct them, persuading. So the difference between convincing and persuading, it's like it's the similar concept of manipulation and leadership.
Yeah,
it's very interesting because I've noticed that when I was in sales, where if I didn't really believe in the thing, that the service or the product that I'm selling, it's really hard for me to sell that thing. I think it's because it's innate in my human nature where I want to be authentically believing in this thing before I can tell anyone about it, essentially.
Yeah, sales is an interesting thing. It's really not that hard, right? Because most people want what you have. You just got to convince them that you're the one to buy it from. People say, man, I don't want to start a business because that area or that market is so flooded. Well, you think if Burger King was concerned about McDonald's, you know,
or KFC.
Like, why is there a CVS across the street from every Walgreens?
Right.
Every time.
That confuses me.
Because people need the same products. Like, they don't really care where they go. They're more concerned about the service. You know, look at a place like Chick-fil-A. Nothing against Chick-fil-A, but if you care about clogged arteries and heart disease, it's still fried chicken, right?
Oh man, that's
but
real,
we'll
dude.
go hard on KFC and churches, you know, because it's deep fried chicken and you're gonna have clogged arteries.
But we call Chick-fil-A
Jesus chicken.
Jesus chicken.
Why?
What is it meant to save you?
Because of the environment. Because of the you know, the aura around how they treat us. Everything's clean, it's nice, it's friendly, it's fast, it's professionalism, right?
That's good.
That's the thing about sales.
So do you think, and this is another thing that Myron Golden says, is the contributing factors and determining factors. Have you heard about this one?
The contributing factors
and the determining factors.
Okay, two separate things. No.
So determining factors are your inner talk, So determining factors are your values, the things that you believe in. Contributing factors are the things on the outside, outskirts of who you are.
Things they give to.
Media, people's opinions, circumstances. Okay. They're contributing factors. They're not determining factors. A lot of us get confused with the two.
I like that because when we think of determination, we think of an inner drive. Are you determined?
Yeah.
Yeah. To contribute means to give to contribute to the cause.
And we're like, we're like computers. You said inner drive, hard drive. And what's crazy about that is the contributing factors, the viruses that can enter into a computer, it's because the computer allowed it to come in.
That's software. You can undownload and reload the software.
That's the gatekeeper I was telling you about. The gatekeeper was telling me, and I'm
so is the gatekeeper the contributor?
Kind of like the software, internal software that was telling me, hey, this isn't meant to be in here.
We're talking body, soul, spirit stuff.
Yeah, we're going back to that one, aren't we? The trichotomy of a human being. And we can dive into that a little bit. We did mention this before in our previous existence, if you will, because people are probably listening to our stuff and they're like, you're saying Orange Pod. That's that was our previous name, and we rebranded to The Environment, which I feel like is so intentional. We talked about body, soul, and spirit.
Yeah.
And to touch on that, the body is a vehicle.
Yep.
I've heard it said that you are a spirit that possesses a soul
that lives in a body.
body.
Yeah.
The body and soul was formed, if you will. Your mother and father did their thing, reproduced, formation, and your soul was formed too. Yeah. I see your soul as a sponge. Mm-hmm. It soaks in both the positive and the negative. This is why the first 4 years of a child's life is so crucial, that you need to be very careful with. And I'll say obviously the years after, but I say the first 4 years is crucial because they're soaking in everything. So if you have an anxious mother that's picking up a child, guess what happens through that process? You transfer that anxiety to that child. Mm-hmm. So it's wise not to use a child as a soothing tool. Mm. So soul is made up of your environment, experiences, and education. Your spirit.
Another term for your soul would be your subconscious. The things that you subconsciously interpret and download, and you begin to operate off of it.
It's actually conscious too, because your subconscious being, your subconscious internal system, is allowing you to have that perception of how to consciously be aware or active of what to look for. It stems from your subconscious mind, but when you're conscious of what's happening right now, we're conscious right now. We're talking. Yeah. They're both part of your soul.
Yeah.
And then, so that's your body and soul that is formed, but your spirit was created.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us get confused based on their formation and not their creation. Your spirit is the limitless, boundless, fearless part of you.
I would say unlimited.
Limitless.
Oh, limitless.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know where you're going with that. Unlimited.
Unlimited, yeah.
Yeah, and this is where all the creative ideas come from. This is the divinity of your humanity. This is the divine part of you. Yeah. This was actually the part of you that was created well before you were formed in your mother's womb.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people can get confused with that, and I know some people's interpretation of religiosity, people's interpretation of, a big asteroid hit the Earth and that's what created the world, like evolution, yada, yada. But like, come on, guys, even science can't even prove that. It doesn't even make sense in science. But I want to integrate that in there because your inner voice is your soul.
Yeah.
Now, there is a part of you that's speaking to you. It's your spirit, spiritual essence.
Yeah. So give some examples of how to train the subconscious.
I'm glad.
Or the soul. Train the soul.
The inner voice.
Yeah, the inner voice.
I would say it really changed me when I started reading books. Because...
Game changer.
And I know you have to be very careful with what books, though. Mm-hmm. You may need to even look into these authors, too.
It's a doctrine.
It is a doctrine, yeah.
It's a doctrine.
You could easily believe in something that may not even be of value to you or people around you.
You know, what I have to say to that is I agree with that, that if they actually took the path that you took, they would have the perspective that you took. I think a lot of us don't want to take the time and the investment to read.
It's too hard.
To study. It's too hard. And I don't think a lot of people don't want the outcome, because that was me at one point.
I wasn't a reader either.
I wasn't a reader,
Yeah.
but my spirit convicted my soul that what I was doing was wrong. And I knew at one point that I would, that I would come to believe in Jesus. I wasn't ready at the time.
Same.
Like, I was convicted. Kind of like you talk about your spirit was convicting your soul. I was convicted. And I think a lot of people know that.
Yeah.
But they like what they're doing and they don't want to stop doing
It's
it.
like, Brian, I want to read this statement here. This was actually from John Maxwell. He posted this the other day. He said, to lead yourself, use your head. To lead others, use your heart. I would explore that a little bit. To lead yourself, use your head. To lead others, use your heart. What's the difference between your head and your heart?
Well, of course, your head is your logical thinking.
Right.
Right. It's systems, it's processes, it's procedures.
Do you think head is conscious and your consciousness, or conscious, and your heart is your subconscious?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think people see it that way.
Your head is your conscious. It's right now. What am I saying? How am I saying it?
Yeah.
Is it good enough, bad enough, dumb enough? You know what I mean?
Yes.
And your heart is, I'm just gonna be vulnerable. Like it is what it is.
Or even just examining some of your thought processes.
So I had the opportunity to speak to some students the other day.
Yeah.
Some seniors, some undecided seniors, about what's next after graduation. It was about 40 students, and we took them on a college tour. And up front was some deaf kids, like they couldn't hear.
Oh, okay.
So they had an interpreter standing next to me as I was talking, and one of the young men asked, "What would I change about my?" I was sharing a little bit about what it means to be a contractor, what it means to be a business owner. And he asked me, okay, so what is the future for your business? I'm like, well, I want to grow. I want to expand. I'm going to spend more on marketing, more on advertising and branding and hiring. And he was like, okay, cool. And then he asked her, and she asked me, he said, what would you change? And I thought about it for a second, because I just said all this good stuff about marketing, branding, growing, developing, money. And he's like, what would you change? And then I had to think about it. And this is where I used my heart. Like, in the moment, it just happened. I was like, man, nothing. But that's not what he want to hear. He don't want to hear nothing. He want to know, like, how did you get here? So, man, I just, off the cuff, started telling him about my struggles, the things I overcame, what I went through. And as I'm telling him this, he's smiling, right? He just starts smiling. And I realized in that moment, he's seen his struggles and my struggles, because he's deaf. And I'm like, I went through this, I went through that. I could have gave up, no mom, no dad. And he started smiling, because he's like, okay, if you can do it, I can do it. My struggles aren't limiting me to, to where I'm at or to what I'm capable of achieving. So I think that would be a great example of your head versus your heart, because I'm talking logistics, numbers, growth. And he like, that sounds cool and all. But when I got to the heart part, the struggle part, like that's how we connect with people.
Connection. Yeah.
We get people in with the head, right? But we connect and keep them with the heart.